Welcome to the full Facebook ad account setup tutorial. In this video, we're going to be going over the entire campaign creation process and exactly how to get set up, the most effective campaign structures for 2025, and everything that you need to know to feel confident in launching your first campaign. This video is for newer Facebook advertisers and for anybody who's just looking for the best way to structure your ad campaigns. Over the last half decade, I've spent hundreds of millions of dollars for our clients at our agency Bolt, and I'm going to show you exactly what we've done to help them get from just starting out all the way to the point where they are scaling. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into this video. We're going to start out in Ads Manager. If you don't know how to get here, go to adsmanager.facebook.com. That should take you where you need to go. You may see some of your past campaigns here. If it's a brand new ad account, it may look like mine. Regardless, to get started, we're going to hit this green create button. The first thing you're going to be asked is to choose your objective. This is just your overarching goal of what you're trying to do with your ads. It's pretty straightforward here. Typically, if you are in the e-com space and you're trying to generate sales, you are always going to be selecting sales here. And then you're just going to hit continue. Then you're going to see two different campaign options. You're going to see the Advantage Plus shopping campaign and the manual sales campaign. The big difference here is the Advantage Plus shopping campaign doesn't have the same amount of flexibility as the manual sales campaign. This is Meta's easy to set up, really quick to get live campaign option. But for most newer advertisers, the manual sales campaign is still the better option. So that's what we're going to choose. So the first thing we're going to see is what we want to name our campaign. This doesn't really matter, especially at the beginning, whether you're naming your campaign, whether you're naming your ad sets, whether you're naming ads. The most important thing is that you can just differentiate between any other campaigns that you've set up in the past, and you can look at it with a glance and see what you're looking at. It doesn't really matter. You don't need any complex naming conventions here, especially to start. Typically what I say is sales campaign, which is the objective, and then I just put the date that I launched the campaign. Next, you're going to see special ad categories. For the most part, you don't need to do this unless you're in financial services, employment, social issues, elections, or politics. If you are in one of these, you're going to want to go ahead and select it. But if you aren't, and you probably aren't, you're just going to move right on past. Next is the buying type. You're almost never going to touch this. I'm not even going to get into the difference between auction and reservation because it is pretty advanced. 99% of advertisers are going to be using auction. Go ahead and leave that the same and move on. Next is Advantage catalog ads. So this is if you want to only utilize your catalog whenever you're making ad creatives. Most of the time, this is only going to be used by people with hundreds and hundreds of products and larger budgets. Typically, you're going to leave this off and you're going to go to move on because we're going to be adding in our own ads. Next is Advantage campaign budget. We're going to go into this a little bit more in depth. You want to almost always keep this on. So there's two different types of ways to set up your campaign's budget, either at the campaign level or the ad set level. Advantage campaign budget is allocating your budget at the campaign level. I'm going to show you a couple of examples here. So whenever you have Advantage campaign budgets on, otherwise known as campaign budget optimization, you give your campaign a set budget and then the algorithm decides how to allocate that budget the most effective way. So for example, if we give our campaign $100 a day, it may spend $80 on one ad set. It may spend $20 on another ad set. And the goal is to distribute that budget in the most cost-effective way to get you as many purchases as possible. It doesn't always end up that way, but in theory, that is why we want to have Advantage campaign budget set on. Now, if we don't have it set up, it's called ad set budget optimization, which means we set budgets at individual ad set levels. So we may spend $50 a day on ad set A and maybe $50 a day on ad set B, and it's going to get exactly $50 a day because we are setting the budget for each individual ad set. This is a more manual strategy. It's a little bit more complex. If you're an advertiser that knows exactly why you're doing your ad set budget that way, awesome. But for most advertisers, you're going to want to go ahead and do Advantage campaign budgets. Now, the A/B testing tool, this allows you to test different versions of your strategy, whether it be the creative, whether it be the audience, whether it be the placements. This is, again, a bit of an advanced function. It's not incredibly useful in 2025 anyways, because the algorithm is going to optimize towards your winners. So I would go ahead and keep this off and move on. Next is audience segment. This is just for data analysis. This lets you see what types of customers are purchasing, not just whether or not they are purchasing. Again, this is a more advanced feature. You'll get into this in the future, but you don't need to touch audience segment reporting. Now for conversion location, if you are selling a product, you should always either have website or website and shop. If your product is good for shops and it's already set up, amazing. You can go ahead and do website and shop because some people will purchase through the native app. But for the most part, you can just do website and be totally fine. That is where a majority of people are going to be purchasing from Meta ads. Now for performance goal, we're just going to leave it as maximize number of conversions. And for your data set, the most important piece here is that you do have a pixel set up. If you do not have a pixel set up with your ads manager, you are not going to be able to track anything. Therefore, you are not going to be able to optimize and your results are going to be absolutely horrible. So make sure that you have a pixel set up before this video. There's tons of videos on YouTube about this. If you don't know how to set it up yourself, it's pretty straightforward. Now for your conversion event, you almost always want it to be purchases. Let's just say you always want it to be purchases if you're selling a product. And you also want this dot to be green. You don't want it to be gray. This is a fake ad account. This is a fake pixel. That's why it's gray or it's going to be red. You want yours to be green. That means that it is set up properly. Cost per result goal. This is a more advanced strategy. I'm not going to touch on this. You do not need to be doing any cost per result goals, especially if you're just starting out. Now, next is dynamic creative. This is something that's going away soon. It's getting replaced by the flexible ad format. Essentially what you do is you give Meta a bunch of your assets, your images, your videos, your headlines, and Meta chooses the best way to show it to your customer. This is something that can be useful. You definitely don't need to use it at the start. It's a little bit more advanced. We'll go ahead and keep it off for the time being. Now on to budget and schedule. This is straightforward. When do you want your ads to run? If you don't want it to run right away, you may want to set it at a date in the future. If you're okay with it running right away, then you can go ahead and leave it right where it's at. Now, you can also set an end date, especially if it's for a specific sale and you don't want these ads to run after a certain point, then you would set an end date, but you also don't need to set an end date. You can always leave this off and just manually turn off your ads whenever you don't want to run them anymore. Now, ad set spending limits, I recommend that you don't ever use this, so go ahead and move on. And then same thing with budget scheduling. It allows you to spend more at different times and maybe not spend anything at certain times. This typically is going to hurt the performance of your campaigns. I rarely have ever seen a use case where this makes things perform better. So I'm going to go ahead and move on past these. Now on to audience controls. This is only something you're going to be using if you have legal constraints for your business. You can only advertise in specific regions. You can only advertise to specific age groups, or you can't have your ads appearing next to another business's ads or certain types of content for your brand. For 99% of advertisers, again, you're not going to use this. I'm going to tell you what it does, but you do not have to set anything up here. Okay, now on to Advantage Plus audiences. Essentially, what we can do here is we can give Meta some guidance on who our customer is. This is something that's especially useful if you don't have any data through your ad account and therefore the algorithm does not necessarily know who your customer is. Let's say, for example, that you're selling jewelry. What we can do here is we can go down to our targeting and we can type in jewelry and give Meta, I typically would only use interests here. So we can give Meta some different interests. Then maybe we'll use necklace, ring, bracelet, earring. Awesome. Now Meta is going to have a good idea who our customer is, and then the algorithm is going to expand out from there. So not every customer is going to be within these interests, but that's okay because we're just trying to give the algorithm some initial guidance, and then it's going to find our customers from that point on. Now in the past, there was something called original audience options that you could switch to. Essentially, this is restricting the algorithm, and it's only telling them, hey, you can only look for customers that fit within these interests. This is something that could have worked better in the past, but now it is much better to lean in the algorithm, just give it some guidance and then let it work from there. Now on to placements. This is showing where your ad can appear. If you were to do manual placements, you can select the different platforms that your ads can run on, as well as the types of placements they can run on: feed, story, reel, in-stream. There's a ton of different options here. I would not use this personally. I would go ahead and use Advantage Plus placements. Meta's algorithms are really good at knowing where your customers are at, and they're more than likely going to be using multiple different platforms. You probably use a little bit of Instagram. You might use Facebook now and then, especially older users, right? They're going to be bouncing around between the two platforms. We want to let Meta retarget them across platforms. So it's typically going to be in your best interest to go ahead and leave this on. Okay, moving on to the ad level. Same thing. Let's just go ahead and name this ad 1. And one of the first options we're going to get asked is if we want to do a partnership ad. This is for when we want to collaborate with creators or other businesses. Maybe we have like a co-product launch or maybe you're working with an influencer. This isn't something that you necessarily have to use, but if you want to tag your creator's account along with your business's account, this is a good tool that you can use to maybe poach a little bit of their audience along with targeting your own audience. So this is something you can use in the future. It's a little bit more advanced, but you don't have to use it to start. Now, moving to your identity, you just want to make sure that you're using your Facebook page and your Instagram account. And then you'll see that Meta has just introduced this new branding feature. I wouldn't use it. It is kind of wonky. It's not developed yet. I might make some content about it in future videos, but you want to make sure that this says inactive. Now, moving on to the ad setup itself, we want to create ad. We can also use an existing post if you already have a post on your Instagram or Facebook that you want to use. But for this video, we're going to create an ad. We're going to do manual upload, and we're going to do single image or video. You're totally good to use multi-advertiser ads. It just allows you to have your ad amongst some other ads for other businesses as well. It's just going to give you some additional placements. There's no problem with leaving this on. Moving on to your website, this is where you want to send traffic to. So go ahead and add in your website here. We're just going to use Google as an example. And then your display link is your cleaned up version that doesn't include the HTTPS. It doesn't include the www dot. It doesn't include any of the slashes, right? It's just going to be your clean link so you can show users the website that they're going to. Now for browser add-ons, typically if I'm selling a product, I would not include any of these. I don't want people to call me. I don't want them to fill out a form. I don't want them to message me. I want them to buy. I'm not going to give them any alternative opportunities. If they want to find me, if they want to get a hold of you, they're going to do that. You don't need to force them to call or text you. Next, this is where we're going to add in our creative. We're going to come back to this because it gets a little bit advanced. So we're going to finish this out and then we're going to come back to the add creative level. Next, you're going to see event details. This is something that you're almost never going to use. Go ahead and move on. If you have an event that you're throwing, sure, you can add this, but if you're selling a product, you don't need this. Languages, this allows you to add in another language, maybe Spanish. If you're in the US, you might want to be targeting Spanish as well as English. This is something that's probably going to get better with time, but it is new and it doesn't work very well. So we go ahead and keep this off. And then tracking, same thing. You want to have website events checked, but you want to make sure this is green, maybe gray if it's brand new, but you definitely don't want it to be red. This is a dummy ad account. This is a dummy pixel, which is why it does not show up as green. App events, this is if you have an app. We're not going to be using this in this case. And then for URL parameters, if you're using Google Analytics, if you're using Triple Whale, if you're using some other type of third-party tracking, you might want to use URL parameters. But this, again, is an advanced feature that you don't necessarily have to use. So we're going to move on. Now, setting up the creative. In this case, we're going to use an image ad. We're going to go past a lot of this extra junk that Meta asks you to use, catalog items, branding, site links, and we are going to go right down to the media. And I'm just going to choose some Instagram stories that I've posted in the past, and we're going to use these as fake creatives. Now you're going to see that I have a 9:16 creative because it's an Instagram story, and that doesn't fit all placements. That's totally fine. Just make sure you use original options if it does not fit all of the different placements here. Otherwise, it's going to show up as wonky. Meta has a lot of different enhancements that can actually fill in these borders to make it look like it's a full creative using a little bit of AI, but you just want to make sure that you don't make this a 1x1 unless it actually fits. And it looks like, no, it doesn't fit because there's some text down here, right? So we're going to leave it all as original. We're going to hit next. We're going to skip this because it looks horrible. Go check it out yourself. Maybe it's going to get better with some of these advancements with AI. And then we're going to go down into meta advancements. These are the advancements that I typically keep on. We turn these off: 3D animation and image generation. We turn off overlays. We turn off catalog items. We leave visual touch-ups. We turn off music. We leave on text improvements. We leave enhanced CTA. These are the ones that seem to do well. All of the other ones always have problems. They always make your ads look weird, and therefore we don't leave them on. So those are the ones that we keep on. You can look in here and see how they affect your ad and see if it's something that you want to keep. But for the most part, a lot of these suck, and we only keep those 3 on. Then hit done. The last thing to do with this ad is to just add in some different copy examples. We'll go into ad copy. We'll go into ad creation in some other videos. But typically what we do is we like to have 5 different primary text examples, 5 different headline examples. That way the algorithm just has a lot of different types of content to work with, and it can show the best one for each viewer. So we've got some filler examples, and we are going to call this ad done. for this example. Now, a really quick tip so you can save a lot of time whenever you're making multiple different ads is to finish one ad completely, and then you're going to duplicate it. You can duplicate it, a few different times. So say we're going to do 3 different ads in this ad set. We're going to go ahead and duplicate. We're going to hit original campaign. We're going to choose a couple of different copies and hit duplicate. And then what we can do is we can just rename each ad. So we'll call this ad 2. We'll call this ad 3. And then everything else is going to be done. All we have to do is go in here and swap out the creative. So I'm going to get another example just from my Instagram here, grab another story, boom, 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 make sure everything fits. It does. Next, skip, and everything should already be pre-selected and done. We can do it again for the third ad, edit media, boom, boom, boom. Let's just grab another story. Perfect. Skip, pre-selected, done. Amazing. And then say we want to do another ad set entirely, then we can just duplicate again. Duplicate one copy. Boom. We call this ad set 2. And then we can go ahead and add in our other creatives. And that's what we're going to do. Here's a features ad that we loaded in. See, it's a little bit different. This is a 1x1. So if we go 9x16, it doesn't work. So we're just going to leave this original again. Skip, done. And then you could go through and do the exact same thing with all these other creatives. And that's exactly how you're going to set this up. And after you add in all of your different creatives, you would be good to publish. Now, what this looks like when we're actually running a campaign is something like this. We have one single sales campaign. It would be a CBO campaign or advantage budget optimization like we talked about previously in this video. We'll have our winning audience, which is typically going to be broad, or it's going to be advantage plus, where we give it some additional interest just to guide the algorithm. And then each ad set is essentially testing a different creative concept with a few different variations. So maybe ad set 1 is just going to be a bunch of different Instagram stories, just like you saw in this ad set 1 example. And then maybe ad set 2 is testing out a bunch of different features ad. This was my features ad. Maybe we're going to test out a few different versions of a features ad. And then maybe ad set 3, we do an us versus them, where we compare our product to another product. Essentially, what we want to do here is over time, we want to build an ecosystem with a lot of different types of ads targeting people in a lot of different ways, and then let the algorithm allocate the budget in the most effective manner possible. Over time, we may have 20 different ad sets live with hundreds of creatives in the account. You don't need this to start. You can start off with just 1 or 2 ad sets and build up over time. But the idea is you eventually want to build out an ecosystem here. And that's it. That's your full Facebook ad account setup tutorial. I hope you found this video to be helpful. I'll be doing more advanced videos as time goes on, from the best campaign structures, the best creatives you can run for your business, and the best setups to scale up your Facebook ad account. So make sure that you're subscribed. I'll have videos coming out weekly, and I appreciate you sticking around. Thanks.